Millionaire married a wheelchair bride out of pity, but he froze the moment she walked in. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support truly means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us get back to our main character. The fluorescent lights hummed softly above the private wing of St. Jude Medical Center, casting long shadows across the polished floor. The hallway smelled faintly of disinfectant and warm linen. Monitors beeped steadily from behind frosted glass doors, each sound a quiet reminder that life inside these rooms was hanging by a single thread. Nurse Anna Rivera pulled her badge from her pocket as she approached room 814. Her shift had barely begun, yet her shoulders already carried the weight of exhaustion. Still, she straightened her scrub top, took a slow breath, and knocked once before entering. The room was almost silent. A single monitor pulsed green, tracing the slow rhythm of the man lying unconscious beneath the soft white sheets. Grant Carter, tech millionaire, founder of Carter Innovations, 34 years old. A man whose name usually appeared in business magazines, not medical charts. He had been here for 6 months following a devastating highway crash. The kind of crash people whispered about in break rooms, wondering how anyone had survived it at all. His family visited less over time. His board of directors visited only when they needed signatures. Most of the staff rotated out of his case quickly, calling it too demanding, too draining, too empty. But not Anna. She stepped beside him, adjusting the blanket with gentle hands. His skin felt cool, and his face carried that strange, weightless stillness that came only with deep coma. Yet she spoke to him as if he had simply been resting. "Good morning, Mr. Carter," she said softly. "It is just us again." She checked his IV line, her fingers tracing the tubing with careful precision. A small journal sat on the bedside table, the cover worn from weeks of her daily notes. She picked it up, flipped to a blank page, and wrote the date in neat handwriting. "He had a stable night," she murmured, more to herself than the chart. "That is a good start." Then she began the routine she had come to know by heart. She warmed a soft towel with hot water from the small sink. She wrung it out carefully, then she cleaned his arms, his hands, his face, every movement slow, respectful, intentional. "You know," she whispered as she worked. "I saw a little orange cat outside the hospital again. He was soaking wet and shivering. Poor thing. I left him a bit of chicken from lunch. I hope he eats it." In the silence, her voice became its own kind of heartbeat. "You would like him," she added softly. "He has spirit." What she did not notice was the faint twitch of Grant Carter's index finger beneath the blanket. She continued speaking, unaware. It was how she passed the long hours. She told him about her mother's garden in Texas, about the residents she admired, about the strange little stories that made up her long shifts. She read to him when time allowed. She played soft jazz on a small speaker she kept in her pocket. She believed that even unconscious patients deserved dignity, presence, and a human voice in the room. She placed the towel back in the sink and returned to the bedside. She checked the monitor again, leaning slightly closer. The heart rate had shifted. Barely. A whisper of change, but change nonetheless. Her eyebrows drew together. "Mr. Carter, did you just hear me?" She reached for his hand, her fingers brushing his knuckles. For a second, she could have sworn she felt resistance, a tiny attempt at motion. She froze. The hum of the machines grew louder. The clicking of the air vent suddenly felt like thunder. "Grant?" she whispered, using his first name without realizing it. "If you can hear me, try again." But the room went still. The moment passed. Or maybe her mind had created it because she wanted him to wake so badly. She shook her head, trying to clear the sudden rush of hope that had surged through her. She had seen false alarms before. She had seen families get excited only to crash back into despair. She could not afford to do that to herself. Still, something inside her stirred. She set his hand gently back beside him. "It is all right," she whispered. "We will keep fighting." As she turned away to record his vitals in the chart, the monitor flickered again just for a moment. A subtle shift. A quiet signal. A promise that the story of Grant Carter was far from over. Anna did not mention the flicker she thought she felt in Grant Carter's hand, but the moment lingered in her mind long after she stepped out of room 509. She finished her shift notes, sanitized her hands, and moved down the hallway. Yet her thoughts kept circling back to that tiny tremor. She told herself it was nothing unusual. Muscles spasmed. Reflexes happened. Bodies reacted even with no awareness. But hope, once planted, was difficult to silence. By the end of the week, St. Jude Medical Center felt heavier than usual. Several patients had taken a turn for the worse. 2 new admissions arrived in critical condition. A winter storm rolled in, covering the city in a sheet of cold wind that rattled the windows. But inside room 509, there was a strange calm. Every morning, Anna returned to Grant's side. She checked his vitals, took his temperature, adjusted his pillow, and wiped down his arms and face with warm water. She talked to him because the silence felt too hollow. Sometimes she read from the novel resting on the bedside table. Other times she played jazz, the same playlist she had used for weeks, letting the soft horns fill the air. "You know," she said one morning as she checked the calibration on his ventilator, "your heartbeat gets calmer when this song plays. Maybe you like jazz. Maybe this was something you used to enjoy." The monitor blinked, steady and quiet. Grant lay still, his breath rising and falling in slow waves. She brushed a strand of hair from her face and sighed. "It is strange, Mr. Carter. I do not know much about you. Not really. I know the things people whisper. I know the things written on paper. But I do not know what makes you laugh or what your favorite food is or whether you loved your work. It must have been lonely at the top." She lifted his hand gently, stretching each finger. She had become familiar with the shape of his palms, the texture of his skin, and the subtle scars that hinted at old memories. But today, his hand felt warmer, less rigid. Her breath caught. "Grant," she whispered, feeling the name settle naturally on her tongue. "Are you trying to come back?" There was no response, but she could not shake the feeling that something beneath the surface was shifting. Outside the room, voices rose sharply. A pair of executives in tailored coats walked through the hallway with a tone that grated on every nurse within earshot. Anna recognized one of them from a previous visit, a board member from Carter Innovations who always asked the same cold questions about medical costs. Yes, keep the reports private," the man said. "We do not need media attention until we decide what to do with his position. A comatose CEO is not exactly reassuring for investors." Anna's jaw tightened. She turned back to Grant, lowering her voice. "You see, that is what they think of you. A headline. A liability. A man to replace. She believed he deserved more than that. Even if he never woke up, he deserved more." Later that night, as the storm outside grew louder, she returned for one last check. The lights were dimmed, and the room glowed with the soft amber hue of the bedside lamp. She placed her hand on his arm and whispered, "I will see you in the morning. Stay steady for me." She turned to leave. Then the monitor spiked. A sudden rise. A sharper rhythm. A burst of activity. She spun around, her heart thudding. "Grant?" His hand twitched again. Stronger this time. His eyelids fluttered, barely perceptible but undeniably real. Anna stepped closer, her breath trembling. "Grant, if you can hear me, try again." For a moment, the world seemed to hold still. The storm outside howled against the windows. The lights flickered. The monitor beeped with a steadiness it had not shown in months. Then his fingers curled, weak but intentional, around hers. It lasted only 2 seconds. 2 fragile, unbelievable seconds. But for Anna, it was enough to change everything. She leaned in, tears forming in the corners of her eyes. "You are coming back," she whispered. "I know you are." She pressed the call button with a shaking hand, unaware that this small movement was the first step toward awakening a man whose life, power, and future were about to collide with hers in ways she could not yet imagine. The shift in Grant Carter's condition did not go unnoticed for long. By the time the night team rushed into room 509, the monitor had steadied at a rate that looked nothing like the flat patterns of the weeks before. Nurses checked his vitals, Doctors reviewed his scans, and the attending physician ordered a full neurological assessment. Anna stood near the doorway, her hands clasped tightly, watching every movement with anxious hope. Most of the staff remained cautious. They used words like possible response, reflexive movement, and non-specific activity, but Anna knew what she had felt. Grant had squeezed her hand. Not by accident, not by chance. It was deliberate. It was real. The next morning, she returned early to check on him. The storm had passed overnight, leaving the world cold and sharp outside the window. Sunlight poured into the room, making everything feel new. She set her bag down and went straight to his bedside. "Good morning, Grant," she whispered. "Do you remember yesterday? You squeezed my hand. Everyone else thinks it might have been a reflex, but I know it was more." She warmed a towel and began cleaning his face, her movements steady and familiar. She cleaned his arms and hands next, carefully working around the IV lines. When she lifted his hand to stretch his fingers, she felt the faintest tension again. It was like holding a sleeping child's hand as they stirred in their dreams. "That is it," she murmured. "Keep trying." She continued her routine, humming softly as she adjusted the blanket. Then she walked to the small drawer where she kept a portable speaker. She placed it on the bedside table and let the soft notes of a jazz track fill the room. It was the same song she had played many times before, a gentle tune that always seemed to calm the space around him. The monitor's rhythm shifted, rising slightly in what looked almost like recognition. "You do remember this," she whispered. "I can see it in your numbers." She recorded the new activity in his chart, then stepped back to observe him. When the room fell into silence again, she pulled up a chair and sat beside him. She spoke to him the way she always had, telling him the little things that made up her day. She told him about her early morning coffee, about the other patients she tended to, and about a volunteer who had brought fresh blankets to the unit. She told him about her mother, who called every Sunday, and about how she had once dreamed of becoming a musician before nursing chose her instead. When she paused, she noticed something she had never seen before, a tremor in his eyelids, slight, barely visible. But it was there. Her heart raced. "Grant, can you hear me?" The tremor happened again, stronger this time, followed by a flutter that looked like his body fighting its way toward consciousness. She stood quickly and leaned closer, her breath caught between fear and hope. "You are waking up," she whispered. "I know you are." She reached for his hand again, and once more, his fingers responded. They tightened around hers, weak but unshakable. A spark of life ran through the connection, warming her chest. She pressed the call button, but even as she waited for the staff to arrive, she kept speaking to him in a steady voice. "You are safe. You are here. I am right beside you." The door opened, and a doctor hurried in with 2 nurses. They began checking his vitals and preparing for another neurological exam. Anna stepped aside but did not leave. She stayed where she could still see him. The doctor leaned over Grant and spoke firmly. "Grant, if you can hear me, try to open your eyes." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, painfully, his eyelids quivered. A long breath passed through the room, and in a moment that felt almost sacred, his eyes opened just enough to reveal a glimmer of awareness. Anna covered her mouth, tears forming instantly. He was waking up. After 6 long months, the man who had been silent, still, and lost between worlds, was finally fighting his way back. And the first voice he had responded to, the first hand he had held, the first presence he had moved toward had been hers. It was the beginning of a new chapter neither of them knew they were about to enter. The recovery wing of Street. Jude Medical Center felt different after Grant Carter opened his eyes. Word traveled fast among the staff, and although everyone tried to remain professionally cautious, there was a quiet buzz in the hallways every time someone mentioned Room 509. 6 months in a coma made any sign of consciousness a medical milestone, but opening his eyes, following movement, and responding to touch was something far greater. 2 days later, Grant was moved off the ventilator and placed on minimal respiratory support. His breaths were slow and uneven, but they were his own. The attending physician ordered constant monitoring, and every nurse on duty received strict instructions to document even the smallest response. Anna stepped into his room just after sunrise. The pale morning light filtered through the blinds, painting the room in soft gold. Grant lay still, but he no longer looked lost in a distant place. His eyelids flickered occasionally, and the subtle movement of his fingers against the blanket showed that he was drifting closer to full awareness. "Good morning, Grant," she said gently, placing her chart at the foot of his bed. "You have had a busy couple of days. Let us see how you are doing today." She checked his vitals first. Heart rate steady, blood pressure slightly elevated, oxygen levels acceptable, all signs of a body waking up after a long stretch of silence. She picked up the warm towel she had prepared and began cleaning his face, just as she had done every day before he ever responded to her. When she reached for his hand, his fingers moved. It was small, a weak curl, but it was unmistakable. Her heartbeat quickened. "You can hear me," she whispered, smiling softly. "You are really fighting your way back." She lifted his hand and gently stretched each finger. As she worked, his eyelids shifted again, and slowly they opened. His gaze was unfocused at first, drifting across the room with the dazed searching of someone who had forgotten what the world looked like. Anna leaned closer, speaking in a calm voice. "It is all right. You are safe. You are in the hospital. You have been asleep for a long time." His eyes moved toward the sound of her voice, settling on her face. Confusion filled his expression, but there was a flicker of recognition or at least familiarity when he looked at her. "Grant," she said softly, "can you hear me? Try to blink if you understand." It took effort, but he blinked once. Then again. Anna covered her mouth briefly, overwhelmed with relief. "Good. That is very good." A doctor entered the room with a clipboard and began the formal neurological exam. He held up his pen and moved it slowly side to side. "Mr. Carter, follow the pen with your eyes." Grant did, weakly but unmistakably. "Mr. Carter, squeeze my fingers if you can hear me." Grant tried. The attempt was small but real. The doctor nodded with growing confidence. "He is responsive. Still disoriented but responsive. We will advance stimulation and physical therapy." Anna stepped back, giving room for the medical team to finish their assessment. But Grant's eyes drifted back to her every few seconds, as if she was the only familiar anchor he had in the waking world. When the doctors left, she returned to his side. "You are doing incredibly well," she told him. "I am proud of you." His lips moved, forming a faint tremor of sound. She leaned in, trying to catch it. His voice was barely a whisper, cracked and raw. "Who are you?" Anna's breath caught. But she smiled and touched his hand gently. "My name is Anna. I am your nurse. I have been taking care of you for a while." He blinked slowly, his gaze lingering on her with fragile trust. "Anna." Hearing him say her name loosened something in her chest. She squeezed his hand lightly, careful not to overwhelm him. "Yes," she whispered. "I am right here." For the first time, a hint of expression crossed his face, a small, weary attempt at a smile that faded almost instantly but meant everything. He was coming back to life one breath at a time, and the more he returned, the more it became clear that the first person he connected with was the woman who had kept talking to him when the rest of the world assumed he could not hear a thing. Outside, the early morning sun brightened the room, touching both of them with the quiet promise that waking up was only the beginning of everything that would come next. Grant Carter's recovery unfolded slowly, like a fragile sunrise pushing through thick winter clouds. Each day brought a small victory, a small step, a small moment that reminded everyone at Street, Jude Medical Center, that life could return even after months of silence. 3 days after he first spoke, he was able to move his head from side to side with intention. 5 days later, he could lift his hand an inch off the blanket. A week after that, he whispered short answers when prompted. His progress surprised the medical team, but no one was more invested in his recovery than Anna. She arrived early every morning, long before most of the unit came alive. She adjusted his pillows, checked the temperature in the room, and made sure the sunlight was not too harsh for his sensitive eyes. Her presence became a constant in the quiet world he was waking into. On that particular morning, she walked into room 509, carrying a small, portable keyboard. She placed it gently on the side table, drawing Grant's attention immediately. His eyes followed her with growing awareness as she prepared the routine they had repeated for weeks, only now he was awake to witness it. "Good morning, Grant," she said, her voice warm. "You did very well yesterday." The therapists were impressed. He blinked slowly, taking the effort to shape a faint smile. His voice was rough, barely more than a breath. "Anna, you came back." "I always come back," she replied softly. "Now, let us start with your stretches." She lifted his arm carefully, guiding his muscles through the gentle range of motion exercises. He tried to help, pushing weakly against her support. It exhausted him, but it also lit a spark in his eyes. "How long?" he whispered. She knew what he meant. 6 months, she said quietly. "You were unconscious for 6 months." He tried to swallow, the truth hitting him slowly. 6 months, he repeated. "You are safe," she reassured him. "You are here, and you are waking up stronger every day." He watched her for a long moment, his eyes full of questions he did not yet have the strength to ask. She placed her hand gently on his. "Are you ready for something new today?" she asked. He blinked once, the closest he could manage to a nod. Anna moved the small keyboard closer and pressed a soft key. A gentle note filled the room, blending with the faint hum of medical equipment. "This," she said, "is the song I used to play for you while you were asleep. It seemed to calm you. Sometimes your heartbeat would settle when you heard it." She played a slow, delicate melody. Grant's eyes softened, and for the first time emotion flickered clearly across his face. "I know this," he whispered. Anna froze. "You remember it?" He searched for the right word, his brows drawing together. "Feel it," her heart thudded. It was not memory, not yet, but something deeper, something the unconscious mind had held on to while the rest of him slept. "That is enough," she said gently, her chest tightening with warmth. "Feeling is enough." She continued the routine, feeding him small sips of water, helping him sit upright for a few minutes, encouraging him to move his fingers. Each little achievement left him trembling with effort, but he refused to give up. Later that afternoon, a pair of sharply dressed board members from Carter Innovations entered the room. Their voices were polite but cold. They greeted Grant with forced smiles, asking shallow questions about his progress while discussing company decisions as if he were an outsider to his own life. Grant's expression tightened. His eyes flickered toward Anna, searching for assurance. She stepped closer to him, her presence steady and calm. One of the executives leaned in. "Mr. Carter, once you are stable enough, we will need to revisit leadership discussions. The company cannot remain in limbo forever." Grant tried to speak, but Anna placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "He is still recovering," she said firmly. "He does not need additional stress right now." The executive shot her a thin, dismissive smile. "We understand, but time is an important factor." Grant's fingers curled weakly around Anna's wrist, grounding himself. The executives left soon after, their polished shoes echoing down the hallway. Grant let out a shaky breath, exhaustion washing over him. Anna leaned closer, her voice soft again. "You do not have to face them yet. Right now, all you need to do is heal." Grant looked at her with a fragile trust that reached deeper than words. "Stay," he whispered. "I am right here," she replied. As the afternoon sun dipped behind the hospital walls, Grant drifted into sleep, his hand still wrapped loosely around hers. And for the first time since waking, Anna felt certain that what tied them together was no longer just routine or duty. It was connection. It was real. And it was only growing stronger. Grant Carter's strength returned in small, unsteady waves. Some mornings he could lift his arms without trembling. Other mornings he could barely keep his eyes open through the first round of physical therapy. Recovery was not a straight line, but every day he tried, and every day Anna was there. 2 weeks after he first awakened, the rehabilitation team scheduled his first attempt at sitting up without full support. It was a milestone, one that required careful coordination and patience. Anna stood at his side, checking his oxygen levels while the therapist adjusted the bed. "Grant," she said gently, "we are going to help you sit up today. It may feel difficult, but you are ready." He nodded slowly. His body looked fragile under the loose hospital gown, but his eyes held a growing clarity that nobody had seen before. He gripped the rail of the bed, and with the therapist's guidance, he pushed himself upward. Every muscle shook. Sweat collected at his temples. Anna placed a steadying hand between his shoulder blades. You are doing well, she whispered. Just keep breathing. When he reached a seated position, he slumped forward, chest heaving with effort. But he did not let go. He stabilized himself, gripping the edge of the bed with both hands. How does that feel? Anna asked. His voice was thin but determined, like climbing a mountain. She smiled. Then we will celebrate every step. The therapist recorded the progress, and after several minutes, they eased him back down onto the pillows. He closed his eyes, exhausted, but there was a quiet triumph in the curve of his lips. Later that afternoon, Anna returned with a small bowl of broth. Grant was now able to eat certain foods, though every swallow still took concentration. She lifted the spoon gently. Slowly, she said, "Let us take it one sip at a time." He accepted the broth, watching her with calm gratitude. "You never stop talking," he said softly between sips. "When I was gone. I remember your voice. Not words, only warmth." Anna paused, the spoon hovering midair. "I hoped you could hear me," she said. "I hoped something reached you." "It did," he whispered. "It kept me here." She set the bowl down, unable to speak for a moment. The weight of his words pressed gently into her chest. As the afternoon drifted into early evening, rain began tapping softly against the window. The sky dimmed, and the room filled with the warm glow of the bedside lamp. Grant rested with his head turned toward her, studying her face with new attentiveness. "Anna," he murmured, "what day is it?" "It is Tuesday," she said. "No," he whispered. "What month?" She hesitated, then answered honestly. "It is November." His brows tightened. "I lost so much time." She placed her hand gently over his. "Time can be rebuilt. You are here now. That is what matters." He swallowed hard, his eyes clouding with a mix of fear and realization. "My company. My family. Everything must have moved on without me." Anna shook her head. "You are not alone, and you will not face anything alone." Before he could respond, the door opened. A sharply dressed woman stepped inside, her heels clicking across the floor. She wore a tailored coat and carried a sleek leather bag. Her expression was polished but cold. "Grant," she said with a tight smile, "it is good to finally see you conscious." Anna recognized her immediately. This was Evelyn Pierce, senior partner at Carter Innovations and one of the most influential voices on the board. Grant tensed instantly, the fragile calm in the room shattering. "Evelyn." She approached his bedside with the air of someone inspecting a fragile asset. "We have a great deal to discuss. The board has been operating under immense pressure since your accident. Investors expect stability, and we need a clear path forward." Anna stepped between them without hesitation. "He is not ready for stressful discussions." Evelyn's eyes flicked to her with thin irritation. "And you are?" "I am speaking on behalf of the medical team," Anna replied firmly. "He is still in recovery. Any talk about business needs to wait." Grant watched the exchange, his gaze drifting back to Anna with something deeper than gratitude: trust, safety, recognition. Evelyn sighed, clearly displeased but unwilling to argue. "Very well, but make sure he understands that decisions will need to be made soon." She left without waiting for a reply. Anna turned back to Grant, her expression softening. "Do not let her worry you. You are healing. That is the only thing you need to focus on." Grant exhaled shakily. "Anna, I do not know what I would do without you." She squeezed his hand gently. "You will not have to find out." Outside, the rain deepened, casting soft shadows across the room. Inside, the two of them sat in quiet closeness, one relearning how to be alive, and the other becoming the steady presence that held his world together. Grant's progress continued, but so did the pressure surrounding him. The board's visits became more frequent. Executives came with tablets full of projections, legal documents, and carefully crafted pitches about transition plans. They spoke around him as if he were a fragile formality, a name to sign on dotted lines, a figurehead to move in or out of place depending on what investors wanted. Every time one of them entered room 509, Grant's breathing grew shallow, and Anna stood a little closer to him. But the real storm arrived one cold Thursday afternoon. Grant had just finished a demanding physical therapy session. He had managed to sit on the edge of the bed for almost 10 minutes, gripping the rail with trembling determination. The The strain left him breathless, but the pride in his eyes made the effort worth it. Anna helped him settle back against the pillows, placing a warm blanket across his legs. "You did incredibly well," she said. "You should be proud." He gave her a tired smile. "I could not have done it without you." Before she could respond, the door opened sharply. Evelyn Pierce stepped in, followed by two men in tailored suits and somber expressions. Their presence carried a tension that settled in the air like a cold draft. Anna tensed. "Grant just finished therapy. He needs rest." "We will be quick," Evelyn said, her tone clipped. "This cannot wait." Grant tried to straighten, but the effort drained him. "What is happening?" One of the men stepped forward. "Mr. Carter, the board has reviewed your medical evaluations. Your cognitive improvement is encouraging, but your physical limitations raise significant concerns. The company needs strong leadership immediately." Grant's jaw clenched. "I am still the CEO. For now," Evelyn added delicately, "but the shareholders are preparing a vote. If you cannot demonstrate competence soon, they will appoint someone else, possibly permanently." The color drained from Grant's face. He looked from one executive to the next, searching for reason, hope, anything. "So they want to take my company while I am still in a hospital bed." "They want stability," Evelyn corrected. "And frankly, they do not believe you are capable of providing it." Anna stepped forward before she could stop herself. "He is still recovering. You cannot push this on him now." Evelyn turned her cold gaze on her. "This is a business matter. You are a nurse. Please stay in your scope." Grant's breathing hitched. His hands trembled. Anna quickly moved to his side. "Grant, look at me." Slow breaths. In and out. He did as she said, grounding himself on her voice. But Evelyn continued, unbothered. "The board needs an answer, or a demonstration that you can still function as CEO. If not, the vote will proceed." Grant's voice cracked. "My father entrusted that company to me." "Your father also entrusted it to the board," she replied. "And the board believes a change is necessary." The two men placed a folder on the bedside table. "These are the preliminary documents," one of them said. "Review them when you are able." They turned to leave, but Evelyn paused at the door. "We will return tomorrow for a decision." As soon as they left, the tension broke. Grant's breaths came fast and uneven. He lifted his hand to his forehead, overwhelmed. "Anna, they are taking everything." Anna grabbed his hand firmly. "Listen to me. You are not losing anything. You are still healing. They are counting on you being too weak to fight." A tear slipped from the corner of his eye. "Maybe I am too weak." She leaned closer, her voice steady. "You are not. You survived the impossible. You woke up when everyone else gave up. You can do this too." His grip tightened on hers with surprising strength. "How? I cannot even walk." "You will," she said. "Not today, not tomorrow, but you will." He looked into her eyes, searching for belief he had forgotten how to hold. "You really think so?" "I do," she said. "And until you believe it yourself, I will hold that belief for both of us." Grant exhaled, the fight slowly returning to his gaze. "Stay with me, please." "I am here," she whispered. "I am not going anywhere." Outside, the sky darkened, rain gathering on the glass. Inside, Grant held Anna's hand as though it was the last solid thing left in a world trying to take everything from him. But as long as she stood beside him, he was not alone. And for the first time since waking, he began to believe he could reclaim the life that had nearly slipped away. The morning of the board's deadline arrived with a sharp chill in the air. Frost clung to the edges of the hospital window, glimmering under the pale sunlight. Grant Carter had barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the faces of the executives who came to take everything he had built. But underneath the fear, a different feeling stirred determination, and it had taken root because of Anna. She walked into his room carrying the small keyboard, the same one she had used to calm him through difficult nights. When he looked at her, his breath eased. She placed the keyboard on the table and moved to check his vitals, but he stopped her with a trembling hand. "Anna," he whispered, "I need you today." "You have me," she said softly. "Always." He swallowed hard, gathering the courage he had been building all week. "Help me sit up. I want to be ready when they come." She hesitated, scanning his pale face, but she nodded. Together they adjusted the bed, inch by inch, until he sat upright. His muscles shook violently from the effort. Sweat collected at his brow. Anna stood close, one hand steadying his back, the other gripping his arm. "You are doing this," she whispered. "You are not the man they think you are." He nodded, chest rising and falling with controlled breaths. "They think I am broken," he said, "but I am still here." His voice was quiet, but the truth in it vibrated with strength. By the time Evelyn Pierce and the two executives returned, the room felt different. Grant was no longer lying helpless beneath the blanket. He sat tall, weak, trembling, and visibly exhausted but upright, awake, present, fighting. Evelyn paused in the doorway, her expression flickering for a moment. "Grant," she said slowly, "you are sitting up." "Yes," he replied, his voice strained but steady. "And I am ready." The executives exchanged glances. They had expected a fading figure, someone easy to push aside. Instead, they were greeted by a man reclaiming himself inch by painful inch. Evelyn forced a smile. "We came to hear your decision." Grant's eyes sharpened. "My decision is no. I am not stepping down." "Grant," the older executive began, "you are in no condition to lead." Grant lifted his chin. "Then consider this my first act as the recovering CEO. I am ordering a full audit of the board's decisions during my absence. Every contract, every transfer, every vote. If anything was done behind my back, we will address it legally." Evelyn stiffened. "That is unnecessary." "It is absolutely necessary," Grant said, "unless you have something to hide." Silence fell across the room, tense and heavy. Anna stood quietly at his side, her presence unwavering. She had said nothing, but every word he spoke carried the strength she had given him. The younger executive stepped forward, his voice shaky. "Mr. Carter, surely this can wait until—" "No," Grant interrupted. "Nothing waits anymore." Evelyn narrowed her eyes, but Grant held her gaze without flinching. Finally, she turned sharply and motioned to the other men. "We will discuss this with legal counsel," she said. Then she added, with a tight, bitter tone, "This is not over." As they left, the door shut with a controlled snap. Grant slumped back, trembling from the effort. His breath shook, and for a moment Anna feared he might faint. She rushed to his side, lowering the bed slightly and pressing a cool cloth to his forehead. "You did it," she whispered. "I am so proud of you." His eyes softened. "I only did it because you were here." She brushed a tear from her cheek before it could fall. "You did it because you are stronger than you realize." He looked at her hand resting on his, then slowly turned his palm upward, interlacing his fingers with hers. His voice came out raw, honest, and unguarded. "Anna," he said, "when I was asleep, your voice pulled me back. You saved me long before I woke up." Her breath caught. "Grant, I do not know what comes next," he whispered, "but I want you in it. Not because I am weak. Not because I need a nurse. Because you brought me back to life when no one else stayed." She squeezed his hand gently. "I am not going anywhere." A long, quiet peace settled between them, warm like sunlight after a storm. Outside, the frost on the window began to melt, droplets sliding down the glass. Inside, Grant Carter, once a silent figure in a hospital bed, had taken his first true step toward reclaiming not only his life, but his heart. And the first person he chose to share it with was the woman who had never stopped believing he could come back. The following week brought a quiet but powerful shift inside room 509. With the board temporarily pushed back and the audit underway, the atmosphere grew lighter. Grant Carter focused entirely on recovery, and with the stress lifted from his shoulders, his progress accelerated in ways that surprised even the medical team. Every morning, Anna helped him sit up longer. Every afternoon, the therapists guided him through gentle leg exercises. And every evening, when the halls turned dim and quiet, she played soft notes on the little keyboard, filling the room with the same melody that had once reached him through layers of unconscious darkness. One evening, after a long therapy session that left him tired but content, Grant sat propped up against the pillows, watching Anna adjust the blinds as the sunset painted the sky in deep orange gold. "Anna," he murmured, "do you ever get tired?" She laughed softly, shaking her head. "Everyone gets tired. but helping you has never felt like a burden. He studied her with a warmth that had grown deeper with every day he spent awake. You saved my life, he said quietly. I do not just mean the medical part. I mean, you saved the parts of me I thought were gone. She turned toward him, her voice gentle. Grant, you are the one who fought your way back. I was only here. You were the only one here, he corrected. When the world moved on without me, you stayed. Anna did not know what to say. Her throat tightened, and she looked away for a moment to steady herself. I stayed because you deserved someone in your corner. Everyone deserves that. Grant reached for her hand. His grip was still weak, but the intention was strong. I want to show you something. She looked down, confused. What do you mean? He nodded toward the wheelchair parked beside the bed. Help me try. Anna froze. Grant, you are not ready to stand yet. Not stand, he whispered. But I can sit in it, and I want to go outside this room, just for a minute, with you. Anna hesitated, then nodded slowly. If you feel dizzy, tell me immediately. With careful movements, she supported him as he swung his legs over the edge of the bed. His breathing quickened, and his hands trembled, but he did not stop. She guided him gently into the wheelchair, adjusting the footrests and placing a blanket over his lap. You did it, she said softly. How do you feel? He breathed deeply. Alive. Anna unlocked the brakes and pushed him toward the hallway. The air outside the room felt fresher, filled with the distant hum of night shift conversations and rolling carts. They moved slowly toward the small rehabilitation garden on the other side of the corridor. The garden was quiet, lit by soft string lights and the glow of the moon above. Anna parked the wheelchair near a bench and stepped around to face him. This is beautiful, she whispered. Grant looked at the flowers swaying gently in the cold breeze. I have not seen the outside world in half a year, he said. I almost forgot what real air feels like. Anna crossed her arms lightly, trying to hide how emotional she felt. I am glad you get to feel it again. Grant looked at her, not the garden. Anna, I need to tell you something. Her heart skipped. Grant. He reached for her hand again, grounding himself in the warmth of her fingers. I do not know what the future looks like. I do not know how long it will take before I can walk or run a company again, but I know this. He paused, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. When I was lost, your voice was the only thing I could follow. When I woke up, your face was the first thing I saw. Every step I take now, I want it to be with you. Anna's breath caught. The garden lights glimmered softly across her eyes. Grant, I care about you, more than I should, but you are still healing. I do not want you to confuse gratitude with something else. He smiled faintly, shaking his head. This is not gratitude. Gratitude fades. What I feel has only grown. Silence settled between them, soft and warm. Anna knelt beside the wheelchair, looking up at him with gentle honesty. If we do this, it has to be real. No pity. No obligation. Grant's eyes softened. No pity, he said firmly. Only truth. She placed her hand over his, and he leaned forward just enough that their foreheads touched, a quiet meeting of two people who had climbed through different kinds of darkness and found each other in the light. The moment lingered, deep and steady. When they pulled back, Anna whispered, "Then we will take it slow." Together, Grant nodded, a peaceful smile spreading across his face. Together. The cold night breeze brushed past them, carrying the scent of the garden. And for the first time since opening his eyes, Grant did not think about the board, or the company, or the months he had lost. He thought only of the woman who had brought him back and the life they were finally stepping into side by side.